Hey Thinksters, I'd like to welcome you to this Thinkster video tutorial, how to improve your Upwork job search with RSS and data scraping. As you know, Upwork is a freelance platform recommended both by and for Thinksters, but there can be some challenges. A key to getting an interview and then the job is to get your proposal to the client early. Even Upwork feedback indicates the early bidder gets the job. The problem is that the search interface for Upwork may not be best suited for those searches, and you have to physically go to the search to find the jobs. What if there was a way you could capture the latest jobs on your computer on a spreadsheet and have them quickly ready for review so you could apply for the right jobs? If that sounds like a useful tool, then this tutorial might be useful for you. Over the next 20 minutes or so, we'll cover a number of topics. Firstly, we'll understand how to define our requirements. Secondly, we'll explore data scraping, particularly RSS feeds and XML. We'll also look at a useful workflow I use for data scraping. We'll use a potentially useful tool, and we'll also build on our Python skills. Now, as freelancers, we should always approach every task as a structured project. You never know when this project might become something useful for a client, or perhaps something you can turn into a product and sell. So a little bit of discipline in the early stages can pay off in the long run. Here is a useful workflow that I use. First of all, I always set requirements. And for data scraping, I follow the following process. I investigate and identify the data. I then look at how we can acquire that data. And I look at extracting those data elements and the information. We clean the data, then we filter it to what we need, and then we output that data. And then we use it, updating the information we have, updating the program, and deliver. We should also document this because you never know when we're going back to that program. So let's look at requirement setting for our project today. We should all start with specific requirements. I use the Moscow process. We look at what we must do, what we should do, what we could do, and what we won't do. So this sets out clearly what will be delivered, and equally important, what will not be delivered. For our task today, we'll look at providing the data from Upwork relevant to the freelancer. We'll look at making sure that's in a readable format. We'll apply filtering and manipulation of the data, and we'll also look at how we can rapidly refresh that data. We could also look at how this could be automated, but what we won't do this time is look at a graphical user interface. That's beyond the scope of our task today. First of all, let's look at how we get the data. Here we can see the Upwork search page. We can enter a search term or keyword, and then pressing the magnifying glass allows us to search for all of the projects. As you can see here, there are some 9,300 jobs that have been found. The challenge is that many of these jobs just reflect one keyword and don't allow us to drill down into the skills. Secondly, there may not be a timely presentation of the jobs available. What we do have, though, is the opportunity to take a really simple syndication, an RSS feed, from this site and have the information presented to us in batches. If we look at the symbol here, selecting the symbol gives an option for RSS, and when we select that RSS feed, we end up with this data. As you can see, the URL indicates it's a feed of RSS. The document itself is an XML version 1. This feast of text is what we're fed by the Upwork page. This is not a particularly useful format to view the data in, so let's go to an XML formatter here, where we paste in the data and then we select the tree view. This provides a view of the XML tree. As you can see, we have an object and an RSS feed and a channel. Opening the channel, you can see there's some preamble with the title of the channel, the link of the channel, and the description of the channel. What we're actually looking for is down here, the individual items for each job. As you can see, there are 10 items, and each item has a title, a link, and then a description. The description itself is a long string of text, and we can look at that here. Here is the XML viewed in our editor. As you can see, XML is version 1, and we have what looks like HTML tags, leading terms like description, content, which has been encoded. We can see some more text, and then we can see some key points posted on, skills, categories, country. It looks like this feed has the information we need. let's look at one of those jobs as an individual snippet of XML. Here we can see there is a title, a link to the application, and then a description of text. The first part looks like it's a pure description of the job. Then we have posted on, category, hourly range, skills, a second copy of skills, country, and another link. And it looks like these individual headings are separated by bold tags. We can use that to our advantage. Now we have an XML feed of our RSS and our jobs. Let's look at how we can parse those. A commonly used parsing tool, particularly for RSS, is Feed Parser. Here you can see from the documentation there is a leading example of XML with a version, channel information, title information, and description of the channel. And then as we move down, you can see there are items just like we have on our own feed. Looking further down, you can see the Feed Parser is imported like any other module, and it has the ability to parse a URL, pass to it, and extract title and link for the feed. But it's not the channel information we're looking for, it's actually our ability to access the common item elements. Again, we import the feed. We have a feed parser object, which is populated by parsing the URL for the RSS, and it looks like the object has a property called entries, which is a list. And from that list, we can extract title, link, and description, exactly like our XML snippet. So let's use Feed Parser to extract our data. The interesting bit, let's look at some code. Returning to our XML snippet, we can see that we just need to extract title as a complete string, link as a complete string, which has the link, but we need to break up description by separating out the individual components, which look like they're delimited by a bold tag, and then we need to clean up those individual strings. When we're processing the strings, there's a leading element we don't actually need because we're using those as variable names, so we won't need to extract posted on, we won't need to extract the category string, we won't need to extract the hourly range string, and just note we can also have budgets as well as hourly ranges. We will need to break apart this information here because what we want is a float value rather than a string value. We won't need the string for skills, but we will need the individual skills, and we'll capture those as a list. And then for country, again, we don't need this information, we just need the actual country. And this is a repeat of the link from above, so we don't require that. So what's our coding plan? First of all, we'll import some packages. Then we'll create a master data frame from pandas, and that will allow us to capture all of the data as individual rows of a data frame. Then we'll extract the data from each entry from the list of entries we get from the feed parser object. Then we'll clean the data. Now there are different types of data we need to consider cleaning, so let's think about those. We'll need to clean strings, so extract and remove the bold tags, the break tags, and any HTML coding within that string. We need to do that for the description, for the category, and for posted on. We'll also need to clean the price, which means working out whether or not it's an hourly price or a budget, and we also want to extract the figure as a float value. We'll also need to clean the skills, which means extracting each individual skill and adding that to a list. Then we'll need to clean the country name as well, which is a little bit more than just a string, so we'll be dealing with that separately. Then we'll need to populate a temporary data frame for each job, and then add that to the main data frame, so we have a slowly building data frame of all of the jobs. Then we want to filter the data frame for just the data we want. Then we want a main function to run all of these functions and coordinate the activity. Now, because this is a beginner's level lesson, much of the code will be less than perfectly Pythonic. It's designed for reading and understanding rather than being the most efficient. But I challenge you and offer the opportunity to refactor this code once we've completed it to make it more Pythonic. So let's import some packages. We'll need 3. First of all, we'll need the feed parser package, which allows us to parse the RSS feed. Secondly, we'll need to import pandas as PD, which gives us a pandas package and all the facilities for filtering. And finally, we'll import SSL. This is a package which looks at secured socket layer communications. We'll come to that a little later on. Now let's look at the main function. Firstly, what we want to do is make sure that we can import the correct URL. This is the URL for the RSS feed. Please note, if you are doing different searches, you will get a different RSS feed. In this particular case, we're using the Python keyword for the search, and therefore we get the Python keyword RSS search feed. Next, we want to create a feed parser object by passing that URL. After that, we want somewhere to put our data, so we create ourselves a make data frame function, and we create a data frame known as jobs data frame, jobs.df. After that, we run through each of the entries from the feed parser object entries list. We create a new job data frame, pass an individual entry to that get data function. We return the new jobs data frame, and then we add that to our current large data frame. So in essence, we run through each element of a list from the feed parser, we create a new temporary data frame, and then we add that to our master data frame ready for filtering. So let's write our make data frame function. This creates a blank data frame which we'll use to populate all of our jobs. From pandas then, we create a jobs.df data frame. So jobs_df is equal to pandas data frame columns, and then we'll add each column separately. First, we want the title, the link for the job. We want the preamble description explaining what the job is. We want the posted on date. We want the category. We want the list of skills. We want the price type, whether that's a budget or an hourly range. We want the price or the maximum hourly range. And we want the country of origin. Having created that, we then need to return that new jobs df data frame as a blank back to our main function so that we can populate it as we get each individual jobs data frame. Now let's do the tricky bit of getting the data from each entry. Let's write the function getData, which takes an individual job entry as its argument. The feed parser object is a list of entries. We take one of those entries from the list and we send it to the getData function. So we need an item title, which we'll take directly from the feed. We need the item link, also directly from the feed. We'll also set a description, which is directly from the feed, but we need to manipulate that. Firstly, we'll split using the HTML bold tags. That will give us the preamble description of the job and then the 5 or 6 individual elements of posted, category, skills, price type and country. Having got description as a list, we can then look at cleaning individual elements. What we want to do is have little functions which clean the strings individually. Now description as a list has the first element. We'll call that item description, and that's the preamble describing the job, and we need to clean that. We'll do that in a separate function. Now look at the individual elements of that list. We've taken the first one out for the description, but now we can take the rest of that list, slicing out the individual headings, posted, category, etc. We can send those to an iterator and step through each of those elements as a loop. We'll call them B tags, so for every B tag within the description, we'll be looking at the text. If posted on as a string is within the B tag, then we've identified the posted on tag. We can set the item posted variable, having cleaned the tag. If you remember the information we had in the snippet, the posted on won't have the B tag because we just split the string on that value, but it will have the posted on, the close bold tag, the colon, and then another space. We don't require any of that information to be cleaned, so we can slice that off our string before we even go to the next function. So let's do that. Item posted is the variable we use for the posted information. it takes the B tag string from characters 13 onwards, and then that information is cleaned by the clean string function. That returns a clean string for the posted on date. If the B tag has category, or else if the B tag has category, we do the same thing. We do not require anything more than beyond character 13, and again we only need to clean the string for category. Hourly range is slightly different. Hourly range could be an hourly range, or it could be a budget. So we again check the string in the B tag to see if hourly range or budget is in there, and then we send that off to a clean price function we'll cover in a second. That will return the item price type, hourly range or budget, and an item price, which will be a float value for the budget or for the highest price in the hourly range. No one wants to bid the lowest price, do they? For skills, again, we'll strip off the leading information, but we'll take each of the skills and we'll be returning an item skills list. Again, this is a more complex string, so we'll have a separate clean skills function for this. And finally, if the tag contains country, then we'll have a separate clean country function, which again only takes the information we require by slicing the string. That'll be characters 12 onwards. Having captured the data from out of the description fields and from the leading feed parser information, we can now create a new dictionary which allows us to populate a temporary data frame and return that to the main function. So we'll call this new temporary dictionary new job, and we'll populate that with the title, which will be the item title name, with the link, which will be the item link name, the description, which is the preamble description describing the job, with the posted information from item posted, with the price type, budget or hourly range, with the price, maximum price or budget, with the skills as a list, and then the country item. Having completed and built that dictionary, we can then pass that to the new job data frame. This is a temporary data frame which is created just from this dictionary, and then we'll return that back to the main function. Once it's returned to the main function, we'll be adding that to the master data frame ready for filtering. Now let's look at the cleaning process. The clean string function takes a string as its argument. The idea here is we'll take whatever text we get, we'll be removing HTML tags and characters, so we return a pure human readable string. Firstly, we want to split up the BR tag and replace it with an empty string. In order to do this, we'll use the method replace from the string catalog. Next, we'll repeat that for the closing bold tag, for the new line backspace tag, and then we'll start to take out the individual tags, the ampersand, the quote, the double quote, the alternative double quote, the ampersand, the actual quoting character, and then finally we'll strip out all of the leading and ending white space. Now this isn't the most Pythonic way of doing this, so perhaps you could refactor it. Having completed the cleaning, we then return that string back to the function. Here is a clean price function, and it takes the item, which is budget or hourly range, as the argument. Here's an example of the information or the text string they will be getting. What we need to do is extract the hourly range or budget, which is on the left-hand side of the colon. Then we want to play with the information on the right-hand side of the colon by extracting all the information. We either want the largest number of the two, or we want the budget, which will be a single number, to return that as a float. Let's look at how we do that. Firstly, we want to split our price using the colon as the delimiter. This will split our string into two items in a list. The item on the left-hand side will be the type, so that will be hourly range. And again, because it's a string, we want to send that off to our clean string function. So we return a nice clean string. We assign that to item price type. Next, the element on the right-hand side, the text for the numbers and the extraneous information we don't want, we assign to the item price, but we need to clean that. So first we remove the $sign. Then we remove the BR tag and replace it with an empty string. Then we strip off the leading and the trailing white space. Now if this was a budget figure, we would only have left the text for that particular information. In this case it would be $61. It would be 61 full stop 00, which is a float, but at the moment it's still a string. In this case it's an hourly range, so we'd have two figures, 33.00 hyphen 61.00. So we need to split that as well. So let's look at how we would split out the hourly range. We check to see the string, and if the string has the hyphen in there, we know it's an hourly range. So what we can do is again split the string using the hyphen. We want the higher value, so we take the second element in the list, and then we return that and assign it to an item price, which we change to float. So we should now have the number 61.00 as a float value. If this is just a budget, then we don't actually need to do that. All we need to do is assign the item as a float, which we do here. So now we have item price type and item price, which is returned back to the get data function prior to being returned back to the main function. Now let's look at the clean skills function, which takes item skills, a string of skills, as its main variable. As you can see here, we have an individual skills separated by commas, some unknown number of white spaces and blanks, and then tags at the end. Because we're going to be returning a list, let's create a new blank list, item skills list, to populate with each of these values. Then let's deal with this BR tag at the end immediately by replacing it with an empty string using the replace function. Then we'll split this string using the comma as the split, providing a new list of each of those items, but they still need to be cleaned. So what we do is step through each of those items for skill in item skills, and then we append to our item skills list, our previously blank list, each of the skills with all of the white space stripped off. Having populated that list, we return it. The next function we'll look at is the clean country function. This takes the item country, and you can see the information again is presented here. We have the country, in this particular case United States, then we have a new line character, a break, and then a repeat of the link we have extracted earlier. So let's just clean this up. First of all, we can split the string just on the \n, which is the new line character, and that will again provide us with a list of two items. The first item in that list will be United States. We just send it to the clean string function, and we end up with a clean string as we've seen before. We then strip off any additional white space, and then we'll return that back to the get data function as a cleaned country string. Just to recap after all of that cleaning, just remember we've been creating an empty data frame and then populating it as a temporary job option. Then we've taken each of the elements, posted on, cleaned that individual string and assigned it to a value. And at the end we've created a new dictionary of title, link, description, posted, price type, price value as a float, skills as a list, country as a string. We then created a new data frame and then return that data frame back to the main function. Here we are back at the main function. The new job data frame, the temporary data frame that is, has been populated from the get data function we've just been stepping through. All the data has now been cleaned and entered into a new data frame. What we need to do now is add that new data frame to our master jobs data frame. We use that using the join data frames function we're just about to write. The join data frames function takes two items. It takes a new item data frame, which is the new job, and then the master data frame. Now with a list we append information. However, with a pandas data frame we actually concatenate. Having concatenated the new item into the master frame, we return it. Just note we're also ignoring the index because we don't want an index in this particular case. Having populated a master jobs data frame, one of our final tasks was to filter that data frame for the particular criteria we were looking for. So let's reassign jobs data frame to a filtered version. Here we are at the filter output function. It takes the master data frame as its main variable, and then what we can write is the number of different filters here, depending on the information we're looking to extract from the overall data frame. Here's the first. First of all, we're going to strip out the non-unique values. What I don't want is the feed, if I send it every 10 seconds, to be duplicating jobs, so I have to read through them. So this function, or this part of the function, extracts any duplicates. It does that by reassigning the data frame, and it's dropping duplicates. And the way we're filtering is we're looking at the subset of the information in the data frame, the posted column. My logic here is that if something is posted at exactly the same time, then it's going to be exactly the same job. So if I filter for only unique values of posted time, I should get unique values of jobs. We could improve this by having the name and the posting time, so that you've got two independent variables forming a single primary key for that function. However, I think for this particular case, we just need the posted time. The next filter we're going to use is to use a budget which is greater than a certain value. It could be greater than $10. In this particular case, I set it up so the data frame is returned with jobs where the price is greater than $20. By changing this number, you can change the value of the job, whether that be an hourly range or whether it's a budget value. Finally then, let's look for a specific country. In this particular case, I have a number of options. I've chosen the United States and India, and I've included them in a list. And then passing that list with a variable name options into the function. This returns a master data frame of jobs data frame, having filtered on the country column and look for those options. So if United States or India is an option inside the country column, the data frame will be returned and assigned to our master data frame. Each of these can be used together or separately, and you can of course write your own depending on the information you're looking to filter with. But what it does do, it then returns an updated master jobs data frame with just the information you want that's been filtered. So having filtered the data, there are only two more things we need to do. First of all, make sure the data we have is something we can access and read. So let's first of all print that off. So we're going to print off the jobs data frame, master data frame. And in this particular case, I don't want reams and reams of data. I only want the first 5. So I've used the head function or the head parameter for the print jobs. And then finally, we want to be able to store this in an Excel format so that I can look at it in a spreadsheet. So we use data frame to Excel, and in there we have the file name, jobs XLSX, not easy to say, and that makes sure that it's saved in the right format. Sometimes if you put the incorrect format there, XLS for example, the pandas function doesn't recognize it. And I also don't want any index in there, so I've set index to false. You may remember earlier we talked about importing the secure socket layer, the SSL module. Why do we need to do that? It turns out that Python is starting to apply certificate verification by default in its standard library for HTTP clients. And the feed parser is a HTTP client, so depending upon the version of Python you're using, you may need to add. What these two lines do is essentially make a workaround so you don't have to worry about the certificate verification at this stage. In future versions, we can update that. And that completes the project. The question then is, what could you do next? What are the next steps? Well, it might be that you also want to have a timer placed on this. So it updates every 5 minutes. But because it rewrites the Excel page, what you would need to do first is probably read in the data from the Excel into the data frame, then update it, then resave it back to the Excel format. You may also want to have different searches. So instead of it being a single URL, you might want to have a list of URLs, but you need to step through each of those as elements of a list. You may also want to change the filters. What is it you'll do with this program? So that completes the coding section. Let's review. Our learning objectives were, first of all, to define our requirements using the Moscow framework. That's must, should, could, and won't this time. Then we looked at exploring the aspects of data scraping, which I think we've done. We've looked at the very basics of RSS, XML, and the feed parser package. We explored a useful workflow of investigate, acquire, extract, output, and use the data we've captured. We produced a useful tool, and we built on your Python skill. Hopefully this has been useful. I look forward to next time.